Now, Jeremy Clarkson's Sun newspaper column in which he said he hated the Duchess of Sussex has become the Independent Press Standards Organisation's most complained about article. Now, the piece, which was removed from the Sun's website on Monday at Clarkson's request, had received more than 17,500 complaints as of 9 o'clock this morning. Joining me now is the former Sun journalist and Hacked Off board member, Emma Jones. Emma, good afternoon to you. Thanks for being with us.
Hi there.
Can I just ask what the procedure is here? Because one wonders how on earth this article could ever have been published. Would it have been read by an editor? Would it have been screened by anyone else? How did it get into the paper in the first place?
Absolutely. It will have been read by the editor, Victoria Newton, and presumably their legal team will have taken a look at it as well. Sub-editors will have looked at it. It should have gone through a very rigorous process. So you can only assume from that the editor herself thought that it was a good and reasonable article to put in her newspaper, even though that's the same editor who published stories quite recently about the late Caroline Flack, whose mother was talking about how yesterday only this sort of article she felt contributed directly to the mental health and the subsequent decline and suicide of her daughter.
Yeah, you see, that's the interesting thing, because in the Netflix film, The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, they make it clear that they've been hounded by the press. And constantly hounded. And the refrain from what was Fleet Street has been that that has not been the case. We are simply following legitimate news stories. This article from Mr. Clarkson completely legitimizes pretty much everything the Duchess has said, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely it does. It shows exactly the sort of scrutiny that she's under. And for what reason? I think she makes that point in the documentary. She says, what is the point of this, and why am I being used in this manner? She's talked as well about her own mental health issues and the fact that she felt suicidal as a consequence of these sorts of stories, exactly these sorts of stories. So one wonders why, with that knowledge, any editor would think it was a reasonable thing to do to publish this sort of story. Or column as it is. I mean, there seems to me that there is no reasonable justification. But of course, these sorts of columnists can write this, and this sort of thing will maybe, cause a storm in a teacup for a few days. But they know really there won't be any repercussions, because Ipso's own code of standards was written by newspaper editors, and it was written in a way to protect them. And it was written in a way that meant that there never is any remedy. There won't be a front page apology. They simply take the story down, and Jeremy Clarkson says, oh, that was clumsy. Clumsy like perhaps changing gear in a car. Clumsy like, I mean, his explanation for this, it baffles me, quite frankly, because saying that you want to throw excrement at a woman in the street while she's paraded naked to a baying crowd speaks to me of sort of a medieval form of punishment and something that is completely out of touch with the way we think now. The Sun newspaper is showing itself to be a relic if he thinks that this sort of thing is reasonable and acceptable now.
Yeah, well, the editor, Victoria Newton, she's not here to defend herself.
Of course.
Well, yeah, we'd love to have her on the show.
She was on Laura Kuhn's show on Sunday, but she wasn't asked about this story, which seemed to me to be a very strange thing, given this on Sunday was the thing that everybody was talking about. But there's this sort of strange relationship whereby I think people are scared of asking difficult questions to newspaper editors like Victoria Newton, because they're frightened of the consequences, perhaps, of doing that. And when you look at Meghan Markle's treatment, you can see exactly why they might be frightened about asking difficult questions.
Ipso has received more complaints about this than any other article in its history. What would you want to see Ipso do?
Well, I mean, I think it's really good that Caroline Noakes and a cross-party MPs have written to Ipso, to the Sun, and asked them for an explanation. But I would also like to see the government and those MPs have tough conversations with colleagues about why there isn't any legislation in place that really opposes this sort of thing and stops this sort of thing happening. So I think on the one hand, I'd like to see something happen governmentally. In terms of IPSO, I mean, I think the whole body is a sham. Just yesterday, the chair of IPSO was supposed to go to Rupert Murdoch's house to have supper, a cosy supper at his Mayfair flat. This was only cancelled when Jim Waterson of The Guardian exposed this story, and suddenly he ran away from it and said, oh, he's not going there. In my mind, that means that it is not an independent body. Cozying up to Rupert Murdoch when you are supposedly the chair of an independent complaints body, which is supposed to scrutinise the very thing that he does, it makes absolutely no sense. It's laughable, frankly. So I'm not expecting anything from IPSO. I think they'll just be hoping that this goes away. There might, there might be some sort of mention, some sort of, a committee formed whereby they talk about this very specific type of article. But I mean, goodness me, I would not be holding my breath.
All right, we'll leave it there. Emma Jones, former Sun journalist and a board member of the campaign group Hacked Off. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.